As I get older and like travel around Scotland more and spend more time in the outdoors, I feel like I want to learn more about Scotland, and having Gaelic just, to me anyway, helps me understand the place more.
Hi, welcome to Paths and Outdoors. Today I am joined by Calum Maclean. He is an outdoor swimmer and a BBC broadcaster as well as actor recently.
Yeah.
Calum, welcome.
Thank you very much, Davy.
No, it's good to have you on.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Yeah, I did a tiny bit of acting. I wouldn't really call myself an actor, but yeah, I've done a tiny little bit of pieces.
Yeah. So, as we discussed before we started there, I'd like to talk about the kind of the origins of the outdoors and for the guests and where it's taken them and where they plan to kind of go with it. So, how did the outdoors kind of start for you?
Yeah, well, if you take it right back to, I guess, growing up, we as a family always did quite kind of outdoorsy stuff. So like going on holiday was often camping. I remember walking the Laddie Grew, I think just as we went to high school or something, like kind of the end of primary school, start of high school, walking that, and I really remember that as like an amazing trip. Like over 3 days, I think we did it in, just camping all the way. So between that and then we actually, so I grew up in Scotland, from Scotland, but because I was born in Australia, we'd actually go back and visit a few times. So I might get taken out of school for like a few months at a time, like have to do homework in Australia. But we'd go over to Australia and travel around, and like we've got a lot of family over there, so stay with them, but also just get the chance to like, do stuff in Australia, be outdoors, and gives you another kind of sense of a different country and what it's like to do stuff in Australia, and just like experience like being in the hills out there and stuff like that. So I think, growing up like that, I was never into like competitive sports really. I played football, which was probably mainly it, but I didn't go to like scouts, or I didn't even do Duke of Edinburgh or anything, because it was like, I was kind of doing that stuff anyway. And then went to university, didn't finish university actually, so I dropped out, went travelling, and then came back to Scotland. And it was kind of around about that time, around about, 11, 12 years ago now, I properly started getting into outdoor swimming. Right. I properly started to get hooked by it and like really enjoy it. But it was nothing that was work for me at all. It was just like a hobby, just something I'd like to go and do. I started a wee bit kind of triathlon stuff. And then it was only through, I was working as a journalist for the BBC, for BBC Alapa, the Gaelic language channel, and it ended up I was working in Skye, in the Isle of Skye, based there. That was my patch, so anything happening in Skye, I was covering it, which is like, if you're into the outdoors, a great place to be. But I was getting really to the end of my tether with the job, because I've been doing it for like 3 years in different locations. And so obviously I spent a lot of time in my free time going out hill walking, swimming, just enjoying being outdoors, finding new places. And so I wanted to do more of that. So I set up like a blog just about outdoor swimming, because I was big, really like taking photos as well, and taking photos of the places I'd go to. So I did this blog, and then BBC The Social was just about to launch. Literally, the guy who set it up, Muslim Alam, asked me to make some videos for it, because he'd seen my blog. And I was like, yeah, okay. So I made a few different videos, and then I made one video called the Scottish Water Temperature Chart, which then went a bit viral, which was really, it opened up loads of opportunities. And I just thought, I'll just keep making these fun videos. So, I kept doing that, and then as I was doing that, so that's how it kind of became work more. And then through the progression of that, I ended up, presenting series on BBC Alapa, and then presenting different programs. We did a few programs. We took some teenagers on an expedition kind of through the Northwest Highlands, and new opportunities kept presenting themselves, and I kept thinking, like, how can I make interesting or maybe unusual or something a bit different, like short films, something that just satisfied me creatively. There's a lot of it. I'm probably rambling here, but at the same time as I was doing that, so I was like working freelance and broadcasting, I actually got the opportunity to go to Glenmore Lodge for a year and do a variety of qualifications. So that was like a really busy year, because I was trying to do like presenting stuff whilst also
Plus getting the
proper
qualifications.
And also working, it was mainly working with young people, children, So like working in that role to to get the experience. So I've done a wee bit of after that year I stayed probably about the next 9 months a year doing outdoor education stuff. But I prefer the broadcasting. I think more the creativity. But it's so like I kind of got a bit of an eye into that kind of world as well, like the outdoor instruction kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you've certainly sort of laid out the path there. No. It gives us something to talk about. So taking it right back to the Larry Grew, for instance, I have a daughter who's just gone into high school, and if I decided I was going to take her on the Larry Grew, it just wouldn't happen. Or all I get was E-rake, it wouldn't be worth it. How were you open to that when you were that age? Is that something that you were interested in? Is that because of your family potentially, or what was?
I think my mum and dad were always into hill walking, or when they lived in Australia, bushwalking they'd call it there. And they did properly long trips, like over weeks, walking for weeks in Australia and stuff. So I think they were always taking us out hill walking, and the Larry Grew was probably the longest walk we ever did, and we did it with another family actually as well. So they had kids as well, roughly the same age as us, which was quite a good motivator. You had something. Although I think at the time I was probably moaning a wee bit, like I probably wasn't totally enjoying it. But then maybe that's the first 2 days or something, and then by the third day you're like, properly in the rhythm of it. You're up in the hills. I think when you're that age, you don't totally appreciate like the amazing places around you. So I definitely was doing probably a bit of moaning. But I think it wasn't like a choice I had. It was like, we're going to go and do this.
You're doing it anyway.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And they would have made sure I didn't have to carry too much weight and like not take a massive bag. But I think we'd kind of built up to it. So like doing shorter trips, going camping in the hills, doing. I did a few Munros when I was a kid as well. So building up to the Larry Grew, because I suppose as a young teenager it's a pretty long trip to do, and it could be full on. But I remember walking down the last day and it was raining I think we came south to north, and then I remember coming through the forest, and then you cross over the bridge, over the river, and then when I was back at Glenmore Lodge I was running through the forest and I came to the bridge and it was like, wow, I remember this place.
It sort of struck a chord.
So that trip, that walk, really kind of did stick with me. So I think that's one really good thing about outdoor education, that like a lot of kids don't get the opportunity to do that because like the family don't know how to do it or don't have access to it for whatever reason. So like I know how amazing a trip like that can be, and how it can get your love for these places. Yeah,
definitely. I think I'm honest, I'm even guilty of it myself. I drag my daughter into the outdoors, and she kind of goes, not kicking and screaming, but she will go. But and I'm hoping that in the future that something will sort of spark. It's certainly not going to happen in sort of years to come. But I think further in the future, hopefully it'll land, and she'll use that experience to.
Yeah, I think throughout my teenage years, but I didn't do it so much. When I had more like freedom to do what I wanted, I was probably playing football more and hanging out with my friends more, who would do outdoorsy stuff. I probably wasn't going camping and hill walking and
Where was home?
Inverness. So I grew up in Inverness. The Isle of Skye first of all when I was very young, and then Inverness. I'd say I'm from Inverness.
Okay. And is there an influence of the outdoors in Inverness? Is it?
Yeah, I think so. I think whatever you're into, you could probably find it. So one thing, like I never really did the climbing growing up, so I've never really been a climber. So like that is something that's definitely growing now in Inverness. That's for sure. You get some like really top quality people who grew up in Inverness now doing amazing stuff with the climbing. But I think so. I think mountain biking as well maybe wasn't so much of a thing when I was growing up, but that's massive now as well. I think Inverness has changed, I think, a wee bit since when I was growing up. It was never a place I would have wanted to stay after school. But actually now it's brilliant, especially for where it is.
Yeah. So from there, you went to uni. Was uni? Where was that based?
University of Strathclyde.
Okay, so you came down to Glasgow
for business.
Right.
Yeah, I went down to Glasgow. It was basically just finished school. A lot of my friends were doing it. I felt like I had to go and do it. and I probably should have just, gone and worked or gone and travelled and gone and seen more stuff than just going straight from school to uni.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people do it maybe kind of too young in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great. So, and then well, talking about, you mentioned Australia there. Is that somewhere you go back regularly, or what? How do you? Obviously, there are obvious differences between the landscape and the climate. But which one do you prefer, and how is it? How do you like the Australian kind of outback, I suppose, is their description?
Yeah, I think I'm Scottish, so I'd always see myself as Scottish, so I prefer Scotland. But because we always went back to Australia, roughly every 4 or 5 years, and it's probably been like 5 years since I've been, I always felt like I had some kind of connection to it, to the country and to the place, and a wee bit to the people, I guess. But my family and the place I know best is actually Tasmania, which is very similar to Scotland in many ways. Like it's similar temperature, it's wet, the winters are just like here pretty much. It's definitely warmer in summer. So going there feels like very much like being back in Scotland to some extent, but that is like a bit wilder. Like it's definitely more rugged terrain. Like you could go out walking for days and not see any civilization really, because you've got a big chunk of it, big half of it, which is basically there's no people or towns or stuff in. Yeah.
All right, I'm not really familiar with Tasmania, so yeah, it's interesting that, and I mean it's only a small place.
Yeah, smaller in Scotland in size, and the population's way smaller as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like I've got some plans, like maybe do some like swimming, running routes and stuff.
All right,
like
okay.
that.
So you got a future plan for something over there.
Yeah.
Oh, nice one. You talked about working for BBC. Well, I call it Alba, but that's not the way you pronounce it, is it? Because I'm a southerner essentially.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, it's supposed to be Alapa. It's almost like 3 syllables.
Right, Alaba.
Yeah.
And that's because you're a fluent Gaelic speaker, yes?
Yeah. So I grew up speaking Gaelic at home. So I've only spoken Gaelic to my dad ever.
Right.
Really. So like, if it's just the two of us, we'll speak in Gaelic. So just because that's what it's natural to do that. And then as we went through school, me and my sister did Gaelic medium education, which was still pretty new then. My mum learnt it, so as we were doing it, so she could help us out with homework and stuff like that. So
she could understand what you and your dad were saying.
Exactly, yeah. So she wasn't feeling left out at home. And like when I lived in Skye, there was somewhat like a Gaelic speaking community there. Inverness, there's quite a lot of Gaelic speakers, but it's so spread out. It's not like around you in the street every day or anything like that. So, but through the school, you can meet a community and stuff like that, and whatever activities you're doing. So yeah, for me, using it is just as natural as using English. And obviously, I like, you could easily go through your life in Scotland and like not come across Gaelic because the number of people speaking it is like so much smaller. But I always encourage people who've got some to use it, or like, especially people who are interested in the outdoors. You look at a map and you're going to see it, so it's like it's worth at least learning a wee bit about it, and then it helps like when you're in places to like give you some context of what like people used to use land for, or like what you're seeing around you and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, how you touched on it there. How important do you see it as for you speaking Gaelic?
Yeah, it's part of my identity really. So I think I feel like Scotland's where I'm meant to be. So I could like move to Australia, but I wouldn't like feel comfortable there, or like I wouldn't feel like settled.
Many Gaelic speakers there.
Yeah, well, there's a few. There's not many. Aye, that's for sure. So it just helps me. I think as I get older and like travel in Scotland more and spend more time in the outdoors, I feel like I want to just learn more about Scotland, and having Gaelic just, to me anyway, it helps me understand the place more. Helps me put stuff in context, like. You'll meet people that you had no idea I've got Gaelic, but then they would have had it maybe in their family or something. And the more you travel around, small bits of the Highlands, which is what I like to do. I like to go around the Highlands really and find kind of quiet and small places and like little tucked away corners up glens. And then you start to look at the history of it, and then having Gaelic kind of opens up a lot of places names for you and stuff like that.
Like an understanding of why it's been called that potentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only, I listened to a thing a long time ago, and it was about the origins of like the names of hills on the mountains, like so Ben, Bean, Stour, all the kind of, and it was a description of the mountain, that's where it came from. And obviously a lot of the Scottish mountains are fully Gaelic, and I've seen you do some pronunciation stuff, which was interesting. I think it was at the Ringestell race.
Yeah, perfect.
You did
Nailed it.
that's because I watched his video, so go back and watch that. And you talk about the pronunciation, but it's also the other thing that I found interesting about the thing I listened to previously was that name, that bean, I think it is, it means it's a kind of flat top, or I can't remember. It says here, so I'm trying to recall it now. Yeah. But yeah, it is interesting, the meanings and where they come from, because it definitely, like you say, brings into context why why they're called that.
Yeah, so like for loads of different words, like Bain, Cairn, come from Cairn, Stop, Scar, and all these things. Those words are generally like descriptive, like so how it looks, and then like it might be, and then the next word might be like the colour of it or the size of it, or it might be how people used it or something, like Beach and Acharaheski. Okay. That always trips people up, that one.
Okay, I'm sure it does. Yeah.
Over near Lochaber, which is like the peak of the Bannon Corrie.
Okay.
And the Corrie was like barren because it's not good grazing for the cattle, apparently. Okay. That's what it is. Not much grows in there.
Right.
So it's like stuff like that.
So they just ignored it. So that's a barren Corrie. We're not
so I knew not to go up there. but yeah. I mean, I was like, basically I like to encourage people to kind of understand it a bit more and like, in a way, try and like, not preach to people, but make it fun if possible.
Yeah. I think you definitely do that.
Yeah.
That's how it comes across. Do you think that's what gave you the opportunity to become part of BBC Alba?
Yeah.
I'm trying to pronounce that right.
I think so. I think so I worked when I came back from. So I dropped out of uni after a year. Worked in Glasgow in a kilt shop, which actually was quite good fun. Gave me some good stories. But then I went to Australia, went back and travelled in Australia and New Zealand, came back to Scotland, and after a while working in Inverness, just in like a cafe, I went to Solmarostig, the Gaelic College in Skye. Yes. I did a course there, which is like a diploma in media, and it was a really good course, 2 years, because it's almost like full-time work. You're just thrown in, you're actually learning practical skills and like how to physically do stuff with a camera, and like, you're learning all aspects of like production. So it helped me work out that I didn't want to be like a researcher in TV or anything like that. I didn't really want to be like producing stuff, but I was interested in making stuff, so like making videos, making films. That was about the same time I was getting really interested in photography. So it was kind of off the back of that course that I then got kind of a foot in the door to work in journalism. And it was very lucky because it was Commonwealth Games on in Glasgow at the time. So because the Commonwealth Games were on, the BBC in general got a lot more funding to produce content around it. So because of that, that's probably the only reason I managed to like keep getting contracts and got kept on. And then so basically I kept getting some 6-month contracts off the back of that. But it came to a point where I didn't want to be like a serious journalist so much as I just wanted to be creative in the films I make. So I want to make films. I want to do kind of stuff that I enjoy, but I want to be doing outdoors as well. So that's when I started making stuff on BBC The Social, and it was actually the BBC The Social stuff, even though most of it was in English, that then BBC Alba were like, oh yeah, here's other opportunities. So the short series, Gan Ushka, all about travelling around Scotland and swimming in some unusual or interesting places, or something I would just like go and do anyway. Right.
It must have been quite niche then, was it? Yeah. So you kind of fell into at the right time and just in the right time, right place, or did you make that happen?
Somewhat. I think making those videos for BBC The Social, somewhat. BBC Alba were like, basically do that but longer. So kind of I made that opportunity happen just by making those videos. I wanted to show a kind of different side to outdoor swimming, because it gets portrayed maybe like one way very often. Like, no offense to the Guardian, but like Guardian articles, which the bliss and how peaceful and mellow it is, whatever, and it is that for a lot of people. I'm not saying it's not, but it's like I wanted to show like another side to it. So that was like a deliberate choice to make those videos, to show that. And then just because they were popular, it opened up new opportunities off the back of that.
And you're still doing that content now?
Yeah, so I wear lots of different hats. Broadcasting covers it generally, but presenting stuff, making some of my own films. I still make stuff for social media just when I feel like it's just like a creative outlet. It's like I want to create something, I want to say some kind of message, so let's go and do it.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Right.
So we'll go back to that. So in that kind of avenue, I suppose, you have done a few films, and we're sat here at Fort William Mountain Festival now, and there is a film that you are involved in that has won the short film award. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I didn't make this film actually. But,
no, I know. You were one of the stars. Let's say.
So me and Jenny Graham, last year, August 2021, walked what they call is like the longest, like they call it the longest line. So it's the longest straight line you can walk in the UK without crossing a paved road. So that's like if you draw 2 points on a map to make a line, the furthest you can walk without having going across a paved road. And so it was right through the heart of the Calums, from near Dalwhinnie on the A9, up and over a variety of hills. Some were good, some were really bad. Took about 4 days to do it, finishing near Corgarth, over on the eastern side of the Calums. And the Ordnance Survey came up with the route.
And it was from a question on social media, wasn't it? Yeah. Somebody had asked the question.
I should know his name, Roger, I think his name was.
Okay.
Sorry, Roger. But he asked the question. They wrote a whole blog about it. I'd seen the blog, but it was Matt and Ellie, who work at Summit Fever Media, the filmmakers. I've worked with them on a variety of things, but they said, "Do you fancy trying it?" And so I said, "Yeah, okay." I'm not going to say no, but I didn't really plan it or anything. So it was maybe a few months before it happened, and then it all came together kind of very quickly. And I asked Jenny to kind of come along and do it about a week beforehand.
Okay. And had you met her before?
Yeah, just briefly though.
Right.
I'd been to a talk she did in Inverness, and then went up Ben with her once as well, for a programme she was doing for her GCN series, where she was racing Mark Beaumont around Scotland and stuff. Right. So I hadn't really spent much time with her. So it's quite a big commitment to spend next 4 days sleeping in the same tent and right beside someone for the next while. Yeah, but she took it on. So.
And well, no spoilers here, but you got to the end, let's say. How difficult was it?
Yeah, it was.
So the concept is that you need to walk in the straight line, so not come off. There's no path.
No path.
You're dictated to by the line that has been plotted by Ordnance Survey. Yeah. And you're going to start at, like, say, in the A9 and stay on that line. Yeah. How challenging was staying on the line?
Yeah, it's really hard work actually. So there's different ways you could do it. You could do it with like a map and compass, so you could line it up and then choose like a tree, walk to that tree, and then choose the next thing in the line. We did like a wee bit of that for the first half an hour, but it was just too slow, and it was also really like rolling hills of heather, so there wasn't anything to look at. There was nothing to pick out. So we ended up just using the GPS. We had the route plugged onto the GPS, so you could see there was a straight line on it, and you saw where your own one went. So if you went like 2 meters off it, fully zoomed in, you could see you were 2 meters off, which became quite stressful. Because walking in a straight line is really hard when the terrain's like up and down, and you don't want to go over that massive boulder. You'd rather any normal person goes around it. Mm-hmm. So you have to go this way. You have to go down this gully where the line goes back out. Luckily, we never came across anything that was like impossible to do. So there was no swims, which was really disappointing. There was no need to abseil or climb, which we weren't actually sure about. We didn't take ropes.
I was going to ask it. Had you done like a cross sectional on it and to see what the terrain was going to look like?
Zoomed in totally on the OS, like 1 to 25,000, so you could see there was crags and you could see it's very steep ground. But until you get there, you don't know exactly what it's like. Mm. So I think it was Bain Vrochtan coming down off there into the Coddy there. Like you could see probably about 10, 15 meters on the right, huge big kind of slabs and rocks that we couldn't have, you could abseil down, no bother, but you couldn't have just down climbed very safely. Mm. So we were very lucky that our line just took us right beside that. And it was like yeah, it was very lucky. I think the way it just lined up perfectly, you could walk it all.
Right. Well, yeah, it's lucky, especially if you didn't have the. It could have been a showstopper at some point.
Well, so if it came to it, we decided we'll just walk around.
Yeah.
So you would have seen
from a safety
totally.
perspective, definitely.
Yeah.
And you said that it was quite stressful staying on the line, and you were a walking partner that you hadn't spent a lot of time with. How did that sort of relationship go?
Pretty good actually. Yeah, we got on well. Like, we didn't fall out. I think we kind of made an active effort to make sure we weren't going to fall out, and I think we'd get on pretty well anyway. Jenny's so positive and like bubbly. I was getting a bit grumpy maybe day 2. I remember that, but it was more just scunnered with it a bit because like I guess the reason I like being outdoors is to enjoy the place, enjoy the mountains and look at what's around you. But it was a lot of time just looking at this little screen, like holding it to your chest, and like a lot of the time our conversation was stuff like, are we on the line? Because only one of us had it, so the other one you feel like a bit like a spare wheel. You're just like, all right, what am I doing? Walking behind them or beside them. So a lot of the chat was just like, oh, we veered off, we need to crab over to the left.
Okay.
So I found it stressful because like I wasn't getting the chance to enjoy the whole experience. Maybe felt like you weren't. Your head was somewhere else almost a lot of it, which it's like
which isn't what the outdoors.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you want to do that, go for it. But I think I learned it wasn't for me. But I mean, don't knock it till you try it. I think.
Now I wasn't aware that there was a bit of a straight line phenomena, and it was only after watching the film that I kind of looked up the guy who does it as that's his thing, and he's crossed countries and things and all over the world in a straight line. He's like jumping through people's gardens and things.
Yeah, it's mad.
Yeah.
GeoWizard.
GeoWizard, that's the guy. Yeah.
So there's like people who are properly into it, which I'd seen some of his videos beforehand, but I didn't know there was like a bigger community, and there's like a website where you can upload your line and get a score percentage-wise, like how.
Has that been done for the longest line?
It has actually.
Did it get a score?
It got a score. So they've got like an algorithm. So basically, it takes all your GPS points and then it works it out like how gives you a percentage of how like straight your line was.
Okay.
And I think we had over 7,000 GPS points. 0%, 0%, because there's like the way their algorithm works. Like I don't know. As soon as you hit over like X number of meters off the line, that's it. You get 0% or whatever. So if you take away, this is like getting properly nerdy.
We're going deep.
So I emailed the guy who runs it, and so he was like, oh, so if you take away the worst 1% of your points, so we did sometimes wander off the line when you're not paying attention, just like weave off. So if you take away our worst 1% points, we were 97% accurate. So
okay.
I don't know.
And then, I use a GPS watch, and I noticed that you get a bit of GPS drift in there as well. That's totally nothing to do with it. You're not moving, but it looks like you're moving. And so, is there any kind of allowance for that in terms of or is it just they put? Well, I suppose it's up to them what the parameters are.
Yeah. I mean, I like how the percentage-wise of how straight our line was. I was like, I don't really care. Because it's more about the challenge of doing it. Because actually, it'd probably be more fun not to have the GPS, to have the route on a map and then try it and then
see how straight the line was.
I think
track it with a GPS and then see how well you did.
Yeah, because at least you wouldn't stress out whilst you're doing it. You'd stress out after. But it's just like a different way of taking a journey. That's for sure. And it develops a lot of skills. But it was also very unnatural way to go up a hill, like straight up, whereas you'd probably follow like a nice line. But a lot of it was heather as well, so it was like pulling yourself up on heather. So it's like physically hard work, even though the distance was not massive, like 13 miles a day roughly.
Right. Yeah. But it was, from watching the film, it was quite slow going.
Very slow going. Yeah. It was mainly to do with looking at the thing so often that you want to really stay on the line. So you might be looking at it every 2 minutes, or you might be looking at it every 10 seconds, depending on the terrain. So we shared like who used it, who used the GPS, and I think Jenny had it most of the time. So like if you didn't have
Is that because you were grumpy?
Yeah, could have been.
So I reached out to Matt Green from Summit Fever Media, who filmed it, and asked, asked if he had a question for you, and his question was quite simple. What other line would you like to do?
Ooh. Actually, it's funny because like after doing it, you start to look at things like as potentially you could do a line. I saw a quite really interesting looking one that goes across Lewis, the Isle of Lewis, or was it Harris? I think it was Lewis, and it was like a natural line formed by the hills almost. So you can see where it goes between the hills, so you might be following the glen. But that one was interesting to me because it combines water as well as walking.
Okay.
So like something that combined like different things. You could either swim or pack raft or something.
How long's that one?
I don't know. Probably like 30 miles or something.
Okay.
Can be that far. That, and I'd like to do. I live now in Aberfeldy. I quite fancy going up Ben Lawers in a straight line from Loch Tay maybe.
Right.
So I haven't tried it yet. I haven't looked at where exactly I'd go from. It might not be the easiest, but I quite fancy trying something locally. But like, it's I get the idea.
Would it have to
of it.
include water?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think I'd want to do something that breaks it up, so it's not just a straightforward walk. Yeah.
And would you GPS it, or would you do what you said?
No,
map it and then see what the GPS looked like?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And then that's probably a more enjoyable way of doing it, because then you're not stressing out as you're going. Because it was interesting the way we did it. Obviously, we had all these technologies, we could plan it out. And there was no information about anyone having done the longest line through the Cairngorms before. People had definitely tried it. At least 2, maybe 3 groups had tried it, but like because of weather or injury hadn't made it. But then when we finished it, I heard about a group that did it in the late 70s, and so of course they didn't have GPS. They just planned it on maps, and so like spent, I think it says they spent weeks planning it out, and it was pretty much the exact same route we did, but it started slightly kind of a couple of miles differently. And they did it in winter, I think, as well, which was pretty interesting. Yeah, I don't think it was just like fully snowed, but of course, like the heather would be like harder, and so it might be easier to go actually in winter.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
and maybe the bog's not so so hard and
no midges.
And no midges. Yeah. Did you get much midgie?
No, actually, it was August, and there was barely a midgie. There was no rain. There wasn't much wind. It was like perfect conditions. Yeah, it was really nice. So we were very lucky because you have to cross the Feshie at one point. Okay. And it's not like a big deep bit of the Feshie, but if it was like kicking it through with loads of rain, you might be struggling.
To get through. Some bog walking.
Yeah.
I saw the jump over one. Watch the film and find out what happens.
I was really impressed until I saw it back and I was like, oh, it wasn't that far.
So you are an ambassador for the Outdoor Swimming Society. Got that right? How does that fit into the outdoor swimming culture that you're part of? I suppose you're a bit of a leader. You brought a book out recently as well.
Well, this summer.
So is it coming out in the summer?
Coming out in summer, yeah. So I've mostly written it. It's still something not quite finished, but I thought I'd just tell folk anyway. 1001 outdoor swimming tips, and so that's like another opportunity that's come from. Like you could boil it back to the Scottish water temperature chart, and then off the back of that, lots of things appearing. But the Outdoor Swimming Society. So outdoor swimming has got massive in the last couple of years. I'd say over the last 5 years, it's definitely been getting bigger. But the last 2 years, especially, the number of people doing it. In fact, you go out past outdoor shops, which always would have had climbing stuff in the windows. They've got like wetsuits in the windows and stuff, just for William, and dry robes and stuff. Yeah. So I think that's really good. And the Outdoor Swimming Society were a big part of like meeting people for me, and also like also learning a lot about it. Maybe at the start, like how to do it, where do I go. They've got a massive online presence now. It was still big when I kind of got involved and started posting and reading about it, like on their Facebook group, for example. But it wasn't as massive as it is now. And for them, it's like an ambassadorial role, so I don't we do anything official other than spread the word and encourage people to do it. But it's such a good resource, like online, the Outdoor Swimming Society as a website. Like if you want to know how to swim in winter, if you want anything you want to know, it's pretty much on there. I think they do such a good work of like encouraging people to do it, and also encouraging you to do it in whatever way you want to do it. So if you're like into endurance swimming, or if you're into just like, you know, fanning about in waterfalls, whatever you're into, like there's space for everyone.
I think I've spoke to Gilly MacArthur.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, she's into it a
Yeah.
little bit. And it was the safety aspect I think that I took from her that maybe there was a couple of incidents last year in the summer when people had gone into, even in the hot weather, had gone into water and had some pretty disastrous consequences. So I think it was that safety aspect that I took from and learning how to do it correctly, because part of the deal of me doing the podcast with her is that I went into the water with her.
Yeah,
so
good on you.
And they were just how to approach it and get into it. Is that something that, well, I think people should learn, but is that something that is available there on that, as that resource?
Yeah, totally, on the Outdoor Swimming Society website. I think it's like, it's how you get the message in front of people. It's like, so I might make some videos maybe this summer. I have made a few in the past, but yeah, basically like how to keep yourself safe. Because I've made loads of mistakes in the past myself, and like some of them I talk about, some of them I just keep to myself, and like don't want to be on media and stuff.
Got to keep
like
it for
that.
the book.
Yeah, exactly. I think there might be a few in there, but yeah, I mean, you do learn a lot from making mistakes.
Yeah.
But you don't want to end up being in a situation where you've made like a mistake too far or something. Like often some of the drownings are like maybe younger people who are not used to being around water that much. So if we can get people like from a young age, you know, using water more, I think like telling people like a blanket, don't go in the water, it's dangerous, is just like no good, because at some point someone's going to want to get in the water. You know, if it's like a nice day in summer at Loch Lomond or something where you know problems have happened before. So yeah, I think the message is how you get the message across, and like the more people doing it, the better. I think like people who've got different audiences and stuff like that is brilliant, and yeah, Gilly's great for like, you know, being straightforward and telling how it is as well. Yeah,
I picked this up on social media. I think maybe a couple of months ago that I think down in England they have restricted a lot of the reservoirs to just not being allowed to get in them now. It's just stopped access to it. So people are going to want to get in, especially as well as outdoor swimming. The other thing that for water sports wise is found up is stand-up paddleboarding. So that, I mean, somebody falls in the water from stand-up paddleboard fresh into cold, potentially water, or colder than they're expecting, especially when they're hot. That can be quite dangerous, and I think that's where a lot of the issues have come from. It's the hot days.
And like people, you know, think they can swim, but then like if you ask them to go swim a mile outdoors, like most people couldn't do it.
It's a different environment completely than doing it in the swimming pool, back and forth. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think obviously we live in Scotland, so we've got a lot of freedom, but I think England needs, well, people in England need to look at Scotland as an example for, you know, getting more access. I don't know how they actually go about doing it, you know, like challenging politicians or whatever. I don't know what the best way is, but yeah, the situation down there, like not having access to so many places, just seems like bonkers to me.
It does, yeah. It's definitely bonkers. We're very privileged, I think, in Scotland to have that access, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in England hopefully trying to do something about it. Whether they'll make that change, I'll not hold my breath. So on your connected to the outdoor swimming and connected to your social media and your videos, and if you're not following Calum on Instagram, then you should. There's a lot of it. Do it. There was one, was it just before Christmas? You did a short series, let's say, a three-part series. It was a bit tongue-in-cheek.
Totally. It's like basically, so it was like me. Well, none of it was me, but I was playing characters. First one is your mate who started taking cold showers. So it's like you're meeting your mate who's just like started taking cold showers, and then the next one was progression into like cold dipping in a bath or something, and then the third one was when the person's progressed onto wild swimming or outdoor swimming. It was just like what's the word? Satire.
Yes.
Yeah. I just
and is it that taken from examples that you've seen possibly out there in social media?
Maybe some of it's me. That's the thing. But like social media, particularly with stuff like people doing like the Wim Hof method, which is actually it's great. I really rate it. But it's almost like a product. Like if you go into cold water now, there's so many people like, you know, they'll go into cold water and take a photo, and it's like oh, there's me, you know, like saved, redeemed.
Found myself.
That's it, found myself. And like, so I'm not trying to like mock anyone in that way, but I'm like, if it wasn't for social media, would a lot of these posts be existing? That's kind of what the whole video builds up to. Kind of the great feeling you get from it. Is it from posting on social media or is it from the swimming? But it's just like tongue in cheek, taking a piss a wee bit about like. So social media, like obviously, it's a lot of my work and. Yeah. It's opened up so many opportunities for me, but like I've got a kind of love-hate relationship with it. And
I was going to ask you about that, how you felt about that.
I feel like Twitter's the worst. Like I get addicted to it, just scrolling, and it's almost like sometimes I wake up in the morning and I flip and stay in bed for an hour scrolling Twitter, and I really hate that. But it's almost like you want to feel some kind of stress or something. It puts you on edge or something, you know, like. So I've got an idea to make another video about the hold social media has on like so much of like what.
Without a doubt, I think my probably most recent example was when my daughter asked me if she could get what's the other social media, TikTok.
Yeah.
So I went on it for half an hour and I lost half an hour of my life to something that was all nonsense. Yeah. That's just my opinion. Yeah.
I'm on TikTok too.
Catch my TikTok. And then I had to log off because and delete the app because it would have sucked the life out of me, I think. And likewise, I think social media is it's a funny beast.
Yeah, and it's like it always feels like you're always getting sold something. So like. Yeah, I mean,
the amount of iPhones I've won is unbelievable. Yeah.
I think I won like 7 in the last week or something.
That's amazing. Yeah. I'm still waiting for them to arrive.
I mean, it's just like it's the world which it's just like I do kind of worry. I don't worry about it, but like I wonder, like where it's going. Like you know, if I have kids, if one have kids one day, like. Totally try and restrict the amount of time you get lost on it. Yeah. Like you're saying, you just lose time. Like obviously it's great, especially for people in the outdoors to to spread your message and especially to encourage people to get outdoors and learn stuff about it. But as long as you're like managing to put it down and actually go and do stuff and not worry that like every time you go and do something that you've got to like prove you've done it, like put it on social media and stuff like that.
Well, we'll need to take a selfie later, so I've proved that I've done this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you've also done and touched on it at the beginning, a bit of acting recently.
Yeah. I was actually trying. Yes. So I appeared in a BBC Alpha series called Bannon, which is like a drama series, been running for 7 or 8 series now, and that was the last series, and I played a detective in it. But it was funny because I'd actually appeared in it as an extra in like season 2, playing. It was when I was a reporter for the BBC, playing a reporter for the BBC. So I was basically just playing myself, but I didn't have a name or anything. So it was an interesting experience. So I mean, I quite like kind of the aspects of performance and like doing stuff on camera and that, and I'm interested in like how the whole thing works. But like it's just so much sitting around. Like so, like to film a scene, you might be sitting around waiting for it to happen all day.
Really?
Yeah, it's just filming dramas and stuff. It takes a long time because everyone's got a specific job to do, and you can't like press record until everyone's done their jobs, and like everyone's got to do their job. You can't do someone else's job for them. Like so, there's like a specific person has to move the lights and all that kind of thing. And yeah, just because they'll move the camera and like it's such big camera gear and you need people to come in to move the camera. So like it was a learning experience. The acting itself was like such a small part of it. It's just like sitting around. But yeah, it was interesting to do, and like I wouldn't say no to doing some more maybe. But yeah, I don't know how good I am. Who knows? It's not for me to say.
You wait for the awards to roll in.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Yeah.
So what else is on the cards? What else are you planning?
I'm quite involved in a BBC Alpha kind of project, or BBC Alpha is part of a project called Speak Gaelic, which is kind of a wider campaign to encourage people to learn Gaelic, because during lockdown, so many folk took up Duolingo. So there's more Duolingo Gaelic users than obviously actual Gaelic speakers. So people were obviously looking for the progression of what comes after that. So maybe speak Gaelic in a way as that. So I do make some social media stuff for them, but also do presenting segments as part of a TV program. So it's going to be more of that this year. I'm filming some other stuff for BBC Alapa as well. And well, I've just moved to Perthshire in the last year and a bit, and it's not an area I know well. So like I want to spend more time finding out about Perthshire and making stuff about it. So like even the River Tay, I got a slight idea I want to swim it. Not all in one go though,
right.
but like do it over a period of time, and maybe make like shorter videos about chunks of it and whatever. Because like there's so much stuff you can do on the river. Like you can surf on the river and all this stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and or maybe not do it as a total swim. Who knows? But I also want to start doing some more routes that combine swimming, walking, or swimming and running. Yeah, so combining routes where it's like maybe some classic hill running routes, combine it into a swim run route instead of just running.
Okay.
Yeah, so because I think there's definitely scope for more people to take that, like to do that. Swim run as a kind of sport look to be getting big, and then there's not so many events of it in Scotland now.
Yeah, there's one in Lomond, I think.
I've done that one.
You've done that one, yeah.
I'd run up Conor Hill in your wetsuit. It was a horrible experience.
Oh.
Yeah, just like sweating buckets. But that was a beautiful one because you're swimming part of it, running across some of the islands and stuff. So it always feels like a proper adventure, because you're physically travelling across a loch under your own steam. It's amazing.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
yeah,
oh, that's cool. So why they moved to Perthshire? What was the?
It came after lockdown, and it was I was living in Inverness. My girlfriend was living in Perth. We wanted to move in together. Oh, I could almost live anywhere in Scotland because a lot of my work is. Well, yeah, I can work from home making some stuff myself, but then I travel to film stuff generally. But it basically suited us. It was like a beautiful part of the country, close enough to Glasgow if I need to work in Glasgow for the day, filming stuff. And yeah, I just wanted to be out close to the hills. So I wanted to be somewhere I could go for a run from my back door and be out in the outdoors. And it ticks a lot of boxes in that way.
Nice. And so that's the plan. That's the future. You're going to sort of create the content and for Perthshire. That's you're going to create all the
possibly. Like maybe that's when I don't plan totally in advance. And like I was thinking the other day, like because of like this feeling I've got about social media where I don't always love it. Like I was thinking I could just like give it up and do like dry stone diking or something. Like I'll just totally walk away from making videos altogether and just go do like.
So where would your creative? That you sound like you need that sort of creative thing to keep not to keep going, but as part of your life. So how?
Maybe that's true. I think it would be in making something. So I feel like maybe making the videos is fun and that, but it's not as satisfying as like physically making something with your hands. So like this is totally like a tangent, but like even making like you make stuff with wood. So I've been looking at like buying a lathe and then start wood turning or something, just because it's like. I thought you can do the same thing forever. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe that idea will pass because I often have an idea, and then I'll maybe do a wee bit of it, and then be it's not for me. I'm going to do something else. So yeah, truth be told, I don't totally know what the long-term plan would be, but I can see myself like just going and doing something totally different. I mean, I quite enjoyed the writing as well. So if there's kind of further opportunities to do something along that line. Could be there, yeah.
We heard it here first. Calum's going to come off social media. You did talk last night at the Fort William Mountain Festival. It sounded like it went down well. I couldn't get a ticket because it was sold out. But how was that? It was
good.
Is that something you do a lot of?
I don't do a lot of. I think I've done a few outdoor festivals, and because that's a good audience of what I talk about. And I've done a few events for either for organisations or like tied into, maybe I've done a video for a group, for a company or for an organisation and then tie it into doing a talk as well. It's good, yeah, so like I don't talk about, it's not like I'm talking about one thing like I've done, like a big long journey or something, or like one specific film. It's more like I talk about the outdoors in Scotland and outdoor swimming, but it's like chucking in lots of videos and clips and giving context to stuff that people have like seen on social media. So like the 1 minute midgie challenge.
Yes, true. We didn't talk about that. Yeah,
I don't know how you can explain that, to be honest.
Yeah, horrendous. I think is how I would describe
Have
it.
you tried it yourself?
No. Don't plan it. I think you nailed it. That nobody will ever try it again.
Disappointing. Like no one's taking it on as like a challenge.
Did you look for somewhere that was specifically midgie infested to do it?
Totally. Yeah. So like the very first one I did, I was living in Skye at the time, and I was out taking photos of one sunset, and I only had a t-shirt on. I was getting absolutely eaten by midges. I put like it's like a 20-second video of my arm up, and just off the back of making that little video, I was like, oh, right. So I wonder if I could like do that again, but actually try and get bitten. So like I spent a wee while trying to find the most midgie spot I could. And it was hard work because as soon as you try and film it, there was no midges. But yeah, that was in Skye, and then I did another one in Glenafric, which wasn't quite as midgy as I wanted, and then another one in Lochaber, which was horrendous. Yeah, it was proper full-on midges around the island in Lochaber, like sheltered, wet, boggy.
Oh, ideal breeding ground.
Perfect. Yeah, so I did it, and then like I had to go and lie down in my tent for 20 minutes, like just scratching my face.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's not pleasant. Midges. Anybody who doesn't know about midges, they are not pleasant. You can check out his video to see how unpleasant it was. Well, thank you for your time. It's been good to talk to you. It's been good to catch up properly. And we will catch up again, I'm sure, in the future. That's been Calum Maclean on Paths and Outdoors. We will see you again soon.